Hi everyone, it's Marisa Williams with Southern Technical College. Today we're going to talk about some fractions and we're going to focus on adding and subtraction. We got a few different problems, so let's start with the basics. Whenever you're adding fractions, as long as they have the same bottom number, you're just going to add the top. So in the case of 1/2 plus 1/2, they have the same bottom number. That's going to stay the same. It's going to stay a 2 on the bottom. We're just going to add the top. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 over 2, that's the same as 1 whole. Any number over itself, always the same as 1 whole. All right, next example, we're going to change those bottom numbers. So if we have 1/2 plus 3/4, now we have to get those bottom numbers the same. So to do this, I got to say 2 times what will give me 4. In this case, I say 2 times 2. So I'm going to keep my 3/4 the same. On the top, I'm just going to say 1 times 2. On the bottom, I do the same thing, 2 times 2. And whatever I do at the bottom, I always have to do the top, right? So that's how I come up with 2 over 4 plus 3 over 4, right? Once we get into the 2 over 4 plus 3 over 4, now we have the same bottom numbers. Now we just got to add those tops. 2 plus 3 gives us how much? That's right, 5 over 4. But anytime we have the top number bigger than the bottom number, that's what's called an improper fraction. So we're going to change it into a mixed number. To do this, we're going to look at this bottom number right here, and we're going to say how many times can it go into this top number. In this case, 4 goes into 5 one time, and how many would be left over? If I said 5 minus 4, I would have 1 left over, so that leftover goes on the top as my remainder. My bottom number stays the same. So mixed number is in this case 1 1/4. All right, moving on to the next example. Let's talk about mixed numbers for a minute. If we have 3 1/4 plus 2 1/2, well, can we add our whole numbers together? You betcha. 3 plus 5 plus 2 gives us 5 as a whole number, but we still got our fractions to worry about, right? So I put 5, and then I'm just looking at the fractions, 1/4 plus 2 over 4. All right, so let's focus in on that. Now, what do I have to do? I got them in the same way. How did I go from 1/2 to 2 over 4? Just like I did in this top example over here. I have to find those same bottom numbers. In this case, I say I have a 2 and a 4. 2 times 2 gives me 4. So just like here, 2 times on the bottom, 2 times on the top. That's how we got that 2 over 4. Same thing over here when we got that. Okay, so recap. 3 plus 2 gave us that 5, 1/4, and then that 1/2 turned into 2 over 4. All right, so from this point, our bottom numbers are the same. We just got to add the tops, right? So 1 over 4 plus 2 over 4, 1 plus 2 gives us 3 on the top, bottom number stays the same, whole number stays the same. So 5 3/4 on that. Now let's look at the same example. But let's go reverse. Let's do subtraction on this. What do we have to do? It gets a little trickier when we're going the opposite way. We're still going to have to get those same bottom numbers, right? So just like we did on the last time, I'm going to keep the whole numbers with them on this subtraction example, okay? But that 1/2 is going to turn to 2 over 4 because again, you take that 1 times 2, 2 times 2, and why did we choose that? Because our bottom number was 4 and 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So we get those in the same bottom numbers. So instead of it being 1/4 and 1/2, it turns into 3 1/4 minus 2 2/4. Now that they have the same bottom numbers, we can subtract. But when we just ignore these big numbers for a minute, right? Let's look at this 1. Can we say I'm 1 minus 2? Not really, unless we want a negative number. But because this has a bigger number, we're going to borrow, okay? So just like when we're doing some of those bigger problems of subtraction, we're going to borrow from that full number. Now, when we borrow, that 3 turns into a 2, and I'm going to take a full number. So how do I know my full number? Look at the bottom. My bottom number is a 4. So if I'm going to have a whole one of those, I'm going to add a 4 to my top number. Because 4 over 4 is 1, right? But when we add my 1 more, because it was 1/4, adding a full because I borrowed from there, right? So we're going to borrow, the other number stays the same, the 2 and 2 over 4, but when we borrow, the 2 and then the 1 plus 4 gives us 5 on the top, 4 on the bottom, right? So that changes into 2 and 5 over 4 minus 2 and 2/4. Now that they have the same bottom numbers, really easy to do. Our 2 minus 2 goes away, so we don't have a whole number in front anymore, right? We're just gonna look at 5 minus 2 on the top. That gives us 3, and our bottom number stays the same, which is 4th. So in this case, our answer is 3/4. A little different from the answer we had last time, right? A lot smaller because we're doing subtraction. All right, let's move on to another example of adding mixed numbers. In this case, we have 2 and 5 over 8 plus 1 and 1/3. Still gonna change those bottom numbers, but we're like, 8 plus 8 would give us 16. 3 doesn't go in there. Let's multiply 8 times 3 then, and that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna take our bottom numbers of, oops, I'm sorry, I rewrote that wrong. It should be 3 and 5/8, just ignore that earlier. And 1 and 1/3, I'm sorry, 3 and 5 over 8 plus 1 and 1 over 3rd. And again, with this, we're gonna get those bottom numbers the same. So I'm gonna multiply. Now, how did that come from a 2 to a 3? Again, our whole numbers here, we had a 2 plus 1, that turned into our 3, okay? So that's where that 3 came from, 2 plus 1 for our whole numbers. Just gonna look at these fractions right now. So if we had 5/8 and 1/3, so that's how we got that 3 and 5/8 plus 1/3. So again, we gotta get those numbers the same. So we're gonna multiply the bottom. 8 times 3, whatever you do bottom, you have to do top. So 5 times 3. Over here, the 3 we're gonna multiply times the 8. We've gotta do the same thing on the top, right? Our whole number is gonna remain the same, being that 3, but now we have 15 over 24 and 8 over 24, because we said 5 times 3 is 15 on the top, 8 times 3 is 24 on the bottom, and then 1 times 8 is on the other side as well. Now we just gotta focus on adding those two top numbers. 3, our whole number stays the same. Bottom number of 24 stays the same. We're just adding those top numbers. 15 plus 8 gives us a total of 23. So 3 and 23 over 24th, okay? Last example, let's do the same problem in reverse. We're gonna subtract instead of multiply on this one, right? So in this one, we're gonna do it a little bit different, but we still gotta get those same bottom numbers, right? So instead of worrying about my whole numbers first, because I'm not adding, I'm subtracting, I'm gonna keep my whole numbers with the fraction on this one. See, in the first one, I added it together. These, I'm keeping them separate. Why? Because I know when I'm adding, I'm gonna add those whole numbers into a bigger number. But when I'm subtracting, I don't know if I'm gonna borrow or not. So until I know that, I'm gonna keep my whole numbers with my fractions. So first and foremost, we're gonna just worry about putting them as the same bottom number, right? So just like before, we're gonna say the 8 times the 3 to get the same number on the bottom. So over here, 8 times 3 on the bottom, where we do the bottom, we do the top, 5 times 3, right? Over here, minus 1, and we said the 8 times the 3, so we're just, this one we're changing 3 times 8 on the top, times 8 as well. That turns into 2 and 15 over 24, minus 1 and 8 over 24, right? So from here, we have the same bottom numbers. Now we can do our subtraction of our whole numbers because we know we can subtract 15 minus 8 to give us 7 on the top, right? So we don't have to borrow in this case. So our 2 minus 1 gives us a whole number of 1. Our bottom number stays the same. So that turns into 1 and 7/24. All right, y'all, have good luck on trying some of those examples at home, and we'll see you next time.